Have you ever felt overlooked or undervalued because of your gender? Jesus' treatment of women was revolutionary for his time. He saw their worth when society didn't. This video will show you how Jesus elevated women's status and what that means for us today. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel. Picture a woman in ancient Jerusalem, shunned by society and cast aside. Now imagine Jesus approaching her, speaking to her with respect and dignity. This was not the norm in first-century Jewish society, where women were often marginalized and viewed as subordinate to men. What if everything you thought you knew about Jesus and women was wrong? The Bible reveals a different story, one where women played crucial roles in Jesus' ministry. From Mary Magdalene to Joanna and Susanna, these influential women supported Jesus in ways that history often overlooks. In the next few minutes, we'll uncover the revolutionary respect Jesus showed towards women. We'll explore how he challenged cultural norms and elevated women's status in ways that continue to inspire us today. Are you ready to discover the truth about Jesus and his female disciples? As we delve into Jesus' inner circle, we encounter three remarkable women who played pivotal roles in his ministry. Mary Magdalene, Joanna, and Susanna were not just passive followers, but active participants in Jesus' work. Their stories challenge our assumptions about women's roles in ancient times and reveal the revolutionary nature of Jesus' approach. Let's start with Mary Magdalene, perhaps the most well-known of Jesus' female disciples. Have you ever wondered about the depth of her transformation? The Bible tells us that Jesus delivered her from 7 demons, a powerful testament to his ability to heal and restore. This profound experience led Mary to become one of his most devoted followers. She was present at both the crucifixion and the resurrection, demonstrating unwavering loyalty, even in the face of great danger and sorrow. Meanwhile, Joanna's story offers a glimpse into the risks these women took to follow Jesus. As the wife of Chusa, an important official in Herod's court, Joanna had much to lose by associating with Jesus. Her connection to Herod's household placed her in a precarious position. Yet, she chose to support Jesus' ministry, both financially and emotionally. This decision likely jeopardized her social standing and potentially her safety in a politically charged environment. Susanna, though less is known about her background, also played a crucial role. Like Mary Magdalene and Joanna, she provided financial support for Jesus and his disciples out of her own means. Her presence in this group suggests that women from various social standings contributed to Jesus' ministry, highlighting its inclusive nature. Do you know the significance of these women's financial and emotional support? In a time when women's contributions were often overlooked, their commitment was revolutionary. They traveled with Jesus and the disciples, sustaining his work during his journeys. This level of involvement was far from the norm in first-century Jewish society. The risks these women took cannot be overstated. By following Jesus, they defied societal expectations and potentially faced ostracism from their communities. Yet, they persevered, driven by their faith and the transformative power of Jesus' message. But here's a question to ponder. Why did Jesus choose to include these women in his inner circle? In a culture where women's testimonies were often disregarded, Jesus elevated their status by entrusting them with his teachings and relying on their support. Their presence challenges our understanding of discipleship in Jesus' time. These women were not mere observers, but active participants in spreading his message. They witnessed his miracles, absorbed his teachings, and played crucial roles in supporting his ministry. The Gospels highlight the integral nature of these women's contributions, yet history often overlooks their significance. Their stories remind us that Jesus' message transcended gender barriers, offering a radical vision of equality and respect. As we continue our exploration of Jesus' ministry, let's turn our attention to some of his most remarkable encounters with women. These interactions not only challenged the social norms of his time, but also revealed profound spiritual truths that continue to resonate today. Have you ever wondered about the significance of Jesus' conversation with the Samaritan woman at the well? This encounter broke multiple social taboos. Jesus, a Jewish man, spoke openly with a Samaritan woman, two groups that typically avoided each other. Moreover, he engaged with her despite her questionable reputation. This interaction wasn't just groundbreaking, it was revolutionary. The impact of this encounter extended far beyond the woman herself. After her conversation with Jesus, she returned to her village and shared her experience. The Bible tells us that many Samaritans came to believe in Jesus because of her testimony. This demonstrates the transformative power of Jesus' approach to women. He not only valued them as individuals, but also entrusted them with spreading his message. Now let's consider another powerful encounter: Jesus' healing of the woman with the issue of blood. This woman had been suffering for 12 years and was considered ritually unclean according to Levitical law. Can you imagine the isolation and shame she must have experienced? Yet, in a crowded place, she dared to reach out and touch Jesus' garment. Jesus' response to her faith was extraordinary. Instead of rebuking her for making him unclean, he publicly acknowledged her. In Mark 5:34, Jesus addresses her as daughter, saying, "Daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering." This interaction not only restored her physical health, but also her dignity and place in society. But Jesus' revolutionary approach to women didn't stop there. Consider his encounter with the Syrophoenician woman. This interaction is particularly striking because it transcends both gender and ethnic barriers. Initially, Jesus seems to resist her plea for help, reflecting the cultural prejudices of the time. However, her persistent faith leads to a remarkable outcome. Jesus praises her faith and grants her request to heal her daughter. This encounter challenges us to reconsider our own biases and the boundaries we place on God's love and grace. It shows that Jesus' message of salvation extends to all, regardless of gender or ethnicity. These encounters weren't just isolated incidents. They were part of Jesus' broader mission to challenge societal norms and elevate the status of women. In a culture where women's voices were often silenced and their testimonies disregarded, Jesus consistently demonstrated their value and worth. But there's more to these stories than just social revolution. Each of these encounters reveals deeper spiritual truths. The Samaritan woman's story teaches us about the living water that Jesus offers to all who believe. The healing of the woman with the issue of blood demonstrates the power of faith and the personal relationship Jesus offers to each of us. The Syrophoenician woman's persistence reminds us of the importance of faith in the face of adversity. Have you ever noticed how Jesus often used women as central figures in his teachings? This was a radical approach in a society where women's voices were frequently silenced. Let's explore how Jesus incorporated women into his parables and teachings, revealing profound spiritual truths through their experiences. One of the most striking examples is the parable of the lost coin. In this story, Jesus compares God's joy over a repentant sinner to a woman's diligent search for her lost coin. This parable not only highlights the value of each individual in God's eyes, but also places a woman's experience at the heart of a spiritual lesson. The significance of Jesus using a woman as the central figure in this parable cannot be overstated. In a culture where women's testimonies were often disregarded, Jesus chose to illustrate God's love and persistence through a woman's actions. This approach challenged societal norms and elevated women's status in religious discourse. But Jesus didn't stop there. In the parable of the 10 virgins, he uses the story of bridesmaids to teach about the importance of readiness and vigilance in the kingdom of heaven. Again, women's experiences are used to convey crucial spiritual truths. This consistent inclusion of women in his teachings underscores their value in Jesus' ministry and message. Do you see the pattern emerging? Jesus repeatedly used women to illustrate spiritual concepts, emphasizing their importance in conveying his message. This approach was not just inclusive, it was revolutionary for its time. Consider also Jesus' first miracle at the wedding in Cana. The Bible tells us that this miracle was performed at the urging of his mother Mary. This event showcases Jesus' respect for women and their influence in his ministry. By responding to Mary's request, Jesus demonstrated that women's voices mattered and could even initiate divine action. Jesus' teachings about women went beyond parables and miracles. Remember the story of the woman caught in adultery? Jesus defended her, emphasizing her future and redemption rather than her past. This interaction highlighted his revolutionary approach to women's worth and dignity. In a society quick to condemn, Jesus offered grace and a new beginning. By incorporating women into his teachings and responding to their needs, Jesus set a precedent for gender equality in early Christianity. He showed that spiritual truths could be understood and conveyed by anyone, regardless of gender. This approach challenged the prevailing cultural norms and opened the door for women to play significant roles in the early church. But there's more to this story. Jesus' inclusion of women in his teachings wasn't just about gender equality. It was part of a broader theme of inclusivity and breaking down barriers. His message transcended gender, social status, and ethnicity, inviting all to participate in God's kingdom. As we reflect on these teachings, we must ask ourselves, how do we apply Jesus' inclusive approach in our lives today? Are we truly valuing the voices and experiences of all people, regardless of gender? Have you ever considered the bravery of the women who visited Jesus' tomb? In a time of danger and uncertainty, they approached the burial site, only to find it empty. This discovery marked a pivotal moment in Christian history. The Gospels tell us that Jesus appeared first to women after his resurrection. This choice was revolutionary. In first-century Jewish culture, women's testimonies were often dismissed in legal matters. By making women the primary witnesses to his resurrection, Jesus challenged societal norms and elevated their status. Mary Magdalene's encounter with the risen Jesus is particularly significant. John's Gospel recounts how Jesus called her by name, symbolizing personal recognition and restoration. This moment transformed Mary into the first evangelist, as she rushed to share the news with the disciples. Jesus' treatment of women at the empty tomb reflects his broader approach to gender equality. It continues to challenge and inspire us today, prompting us to reconsider how we value and respect women in our own communities.